Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. United States President Joe Biden has threatened to reinstate sanctions on Myanmar after the country's military seized power. In a statement, Biden said the U.S. will work with its regional and global partners for the restoration of democracy. Myanmar's army detained Aung San Suu Kyi and other elected leaders, accusing Suu Kyi's party of fraud over its election win. Iran's foreign minister says the European Union can help synchronize moves by Tehran and Washington to return to the 2015 nuclear deal. In an interview, Javad Zarif said the Biden administration has limited window of opportunity to re-enter the deal. Zarif also defended Tehran scaling back from its JCPOA commitments. The Taliban say the Doha Accord is a good framework and opportunity for peace. Taliban's member of negotiating team Suhail Shaheen said it is the responsibility of all to seize this opportunity for the good of the people and for the solution of the problem. It comes as the United States administration plans to review the Doha peace agreement. COVID-19 is once again surging in Latin America, where Brazil and Mexico have both reported more than 500 deaths overnight. The statistics show January was the deadliest month for the US so far, with over 94,000 deaths. In Pakistan, over 1,200 people have tested positive, while 63 died overnight, with the death toll crossing 11,700. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 2.23 million lives and infected over 103.3 million people so far. And in tennis, Novak Djokovic kicked off his 2021 season in style with a 7-5 and 7-5 win over Canadian tennis Shapovalov in the ATP Cup. The world number one was thrilled with his form in the Group A clash, a rematch of last year's quarterfinal against Shapovalov. The Serb needed one break of serve in each set to keep the Canadian contained and seal the victory after an hour and 53 minutes. Now, these were the top stories, news in detail. After a short break, stay tuned. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. Start from the United States, where President Joe Biden has threatened to restore sanctions on Myanmar after a military coup. The curbs were eased recently after the country began emerging from a decades-long military dictatorship. In a statement, Biden said the U.S. will work with its regional and global partners for the restoration of democracy. It said the force should never seek to overrule the will of the people or attempt to erase the outcome of a credible election. Meanwhile, diplomats say the UN Security Council is due to meet later today to discuss the issue. Phone and internet connections have been restored in Yangon, while banks have reopened. The coup followed a landslide win for Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy in the November elections. Now, Iran's foreign ministry says the European Union can help synchronize moves by Tehran and Washington to return to the 2015 nuclear deal. Javad Zarif says EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell could put his hat on a coordinator for the Joint Commission of the deal. In an interview, Zarif said the Biden administration has limited window of opportunity to re-enter the deal. Zarif also defended Tehran's scaling back from its JCPOA commitments. The foreign minister said if Iran wanted to build a nuclear weapon, it could have done it some time ago. He added, but Tehran decided weapons will not augment security and are in contradiction to the country's ideological views. Zarif also said 8,000 pounds of enriched uranium can go back to the previous amount in less than a day if the US lifts sanctions. Now, the Taliban say the Doha Accord is a good framework and opportunity for peace in Afghanistan. It comes as Washington plans to review the Doha Agreement, which previous U.S. administration signed with the Taliban. Taliban's negotiating team member Suhail Shaheen said it is the responsibility of all to seize this opportunity for the good of the people and for the solution of the problem. The statement followed a U.S. watchdog's accusation that Taliban attacks in Kabul are on the rise. Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction reported the proportion of casualties caused by IED blasts increased by nearly 17% in this quarter. But it also added casualties across Afghanistan in the last quarter of 2020 decreased by 14%. Now moving to India, where more than 40 farmer unions have ruled out talks with the centre until the police and government stop harassing them. Earlier, the police erected walls and planted spikes at the Delhi border to restrict the movement of farmers agitating against the new farm laws. Denouncing the move, the opposition's Priyanka Gandhi called it a declaration of war with the farmers. The protesting farmers have also announced a 3-hour nationwide wheel jam strike on the 6th of February. Farm unions say the demonstration is being held against the internet ban at all protest venues. They also rejected the Narendra Modi government's budget and said the centre has intentionally ignored the farmers. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, security forces have killed 3 terrorists during an intelligence-based operation in the lower Dir area along the Afghan border. In a statement, the military's media wing said the terrorists were involved in several targeted killings. It added the militants were planning to infiltrate and conduct more killings. Last week, security forces killed 5 terrorists in 2 operations in North Waziristan. Still in Pakistan, where another 63 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 overnight. This has pushed the death toll to 11,746. The Health Ministry says 1,220 new cases were detected in the past 24 hours. The nationwide tally of cases has crossed 547,000, out of which more than 502,000 people have recovered. There are more than 33,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. Meanwhile, Pakistan is all set to begin the vaccination drive tomorrow after the arrival of 500,000 doses from China. Now, COVID-19 is once again surging in Latin America, where Brazil and Mexico have both reported more than 500 deaths overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 2.23 million lives and infected over 103.3 million people so far. The statistics show January was the deadliest month for the United States so far, with over 94,000 deaths. Japan says European Union exports curbs on COVID-19 vaccines are having an impact on supplies to the country. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has defended the EU's vaccine drive, saying there were good reasons for the slow start. Meanwhile, China has reported 30 new infections, down from 42 cases a day earlier. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom has expressed some level of relief over a reduction in the rate of new cases worldwide. Moving on now, the US has condemned the terrorist attacks in Syria, which claimed the lives of at least 20 civilians over the weekend. The State Department says the United States is deeply alarmed by the frequency of such attacks in recent months. In a statement, the department said those responsible for perpetrating the violence should be brought to justice. It added their actions endanger the Syrian people and threaten to destabilize the region further. Earlier on Saturday, at least 6 people, including 3 children, were killed when an explosive-laden vehicle blew up in Syria's Afrin town. On Sunday, 10 people, including children, were killed and 24 others wounded in terrorist attacks in the northern towns of Al-Bab and Azaz. Now, the United Nations has raised concerns over the situation of Rohingya Muslims in Rakhine State after a coup in Myanmar. Diplomats say the 15-member UN Security Council plans to discuss Myanmar in a closed meeting today. United Nations spokesperson Stephanie Dujarric said there are about 600,000 Rohingya in Rakhine State. It added these include 120,000 who are confined to camps. Dujarric said they cannot move freely and have extremely limited access to basic health and education services. The spokesperson said the United Nations fears events in Myanmar may make the situation worse for them. Earlier, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned the military detention of Myanmar's leaders in a coup. Now, Libyan delegates have gathered in Geneva for UN-backed talks to choose new temporary leaders for the war-scared country. The 75 participants at the Libyan Political Dialogue Forum have until Friday to select a prime minister and the three-member presidential council. In a statement, United Nations Support Mission in Libya said all candidates for the presidency council will answer questions from the delegates. The statement read, the new interim authority will lead Libya to national elections set for the 24th of December. The list of candidates unveiled by UN includes 21 names for the position of Premier and 24 for the Presidency Council. Last month, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres hailed the recent progress to restore stability in the war-torn country. U.S. President Joe Biden has so far failed to reach an agreement with Senate Republicans on his $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief package. The Republicans met Biden in the Oval Office and proposed a $618 billion aid proposal. In a statement, the White House said Biden said he will not settle for a package that fails to meet the moment. He told the senators their scaled-down package did not address urgent issues in many areas. Meanwhile, Republican Senator Susan Collins, who led the 8-member delegation, said they had productive discussions.
It was a very good exchange of views. I wouldn't say that we came together on a package tonight. No one expected that in a 2-hour meeting. But what we did agree to do is to follow up and talk further at the staff level and amongst ourselves and with the president and vice president on how we can continue to work together on this very important issue.
Well, now in the U.S. state of New York, activists protest against police officers who were captured on video pepper spraying a 9-year-old girl in Rochester. Officers say they were responding to a family disturbance call and the girl indicated she wanted to kill herself and her mom. A police body cam video was released that showed the officers handcuffing and pepper spraying the girl who appeared to be a black. The city said the officers involved in the incident have been suspended until a police investigation is concluded. Rochester Mayor Lovely Warren says state law and union contract prevents her from taking more immediate and serious action. Following the announcement, Black Lives Matter protesters took to the streets against police brutality. Well, now the United Kingdom has sanctioned 4 Zimbabwean officials over alleged human rights abuses. London says security sector chiefs are responsible for serious violations, including the deaths of 23 Zimbabwean protesters in 2019. In a statement, Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said the sanctions only target senior individuals in the government. He said these are meant to send a message that London will hold to account those responsible for human rights violations. Responding, Zimbabwe's Secretary for Information said none of the 4 sanctioned Zimbabwe officials have assets in the United Kingdom. In a tweet, Nick Mangwana said they have neither showed any interest in travelling to the UK in the last 3 years. More news coming up in this bulletin after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, Turkey's first self-driving bus has taken to the streets for a test ride. The bus carried President Recep Tayyip Erdogan to the presidential palace for a cabinet meeting. Erdogan and his officials watched as the steering wheel turned off its own. Designed by Turkish engineers, the vehicle has a range of 300 kilometers with a capacity of 50 passengers. Speaking at a ceremony after the ride, Erdogan said the vehicle is part of Ankara's Clean Energy Initiative.
These are initial steps for clean energy because the world is tending towards clean energy. This is happening at a time when climate change is on the agenda. They are asking us why we don't take any steps against climate change. And I tell them When the United States take a step against climate change, we will follow.
Now, astronauts aboard the International Space Station have conducted their second spacewalk in less than a week. Mike Hopkins and Victor Glover floated outside the Quest airlock to begin installing a lithium-ion battery adapter. NASA says this is the final step in a 4-year effort to update the space station's power system. The astronauts will also install a new camera during the spacewalk, which is expected to last at least 6.5 hours. Now, in-person learning has been one of the casualties of the coronavirus pandemic. So now schools in the U.S. state of Delaware are fighting coronavirus with UV disinfecting robots. Let's find out more in this report.
With many parents and students across the U.S. longing for a return to in-person learning after the coronavirus pandemic forced classes online, a China-based robotics company thinks it has the answer. The company has introduced disinfecting robots that use ultraviolet light to kill viruses in classrooms and school common areas.
Robot is working. Please keep away.
Adabot is 2 robots, one autonomous and one stationary. It utilizes a wavelength of UV light, also known as UVC, to inactivate pathogens. It basically scrambles the DNA and RNA of pathogens and disallowing it from replicating.
UV says the UVC light emitted by the robots is 99.9% effective against the virus. 4 robots were recently deployed in 2 schools in Delaware as part of a pilot project to measure cost efficiency and disinfection rates.
Prepare for disinfection. Please leave and stay away.
We may never get to back to normal, but we need to come up with some sort of a new normal where our students are going to have what they need so that they can be successful. And we need to make sure that our teachers and our staff feel comfortable in the buildings if we're going to bring students back.
UVC light can be harmful to humans, so the company comes with a warning sign to be placed outside the room that shuts down the system if it detects any movement. It also has a camera and sensor on the robot itself, which will switch it off if someone walks past the sign and enters a space it is cleaning. The stationary robot costs $20,000 and the autonomous version is $40,000.
Now, in Rome, the sounds of classical music echoed around an almost empty Colosseum. This came after a concert took place that organizers wish will be a sign of hope for a new beginning. The relaxation of COVID-19 restrictions across Italy has allowed the Colosseum and other museums to open. This report has details.
There is nothing that exemplifies ancient Rome quite like the Colosseum. Constructed between 70 CE and 80 CE, this iconic piece of Roman architecture is a symbol of Italian culture. But due to the pandemic, the activities came to a standstill until students from a conservatory played a classical selection inside the structure.
It's very emotional because there haven't been many concerts during this time. So to be here on the first day of the reopening of the Colosseum is a pleasure and an honor.
The Colosseum has witnessed many historic events in human history, the last of which is the outbreak that killed over 88,000 in Italy. Understandably, the artists were taken aback after being able to perform inside it.
We are very emotional and very grateful for this occasion. Also because I am Roman, born and raised here, and here is the symbol of my city.
Built by the Roman Emperor Vespasian, the amphitheater could seat 50,000 spectators. Only a few people had the privilege of listening to the concert. The hope of a new start is sure to reinvigorate Italians.
Plastic bottles, bags, rusty barrels and other garbage have clogged Serbia's Potpeco Lake. Persistent marine pollution is harming wildlife and fish in the lake. An environmental activist has set on to clean the mountain of trash from the lake. Let's find out more.
2 barges have sailed up and down a vast stretch of floating trash on the Potpeco artificial lake in Serbia. These barges are collecting huge tons of garbage floating on the lake and have almost clogged the dam. The river Lim, which empties into the lake, brought over 20,000 cubic meters of plastic from unregulated dumps along its course through Serbia, Montenegro, and Bosnia. Sinisa Lakovic, an environmental activist, says the lake was seeing fewer fish every year, and wildlife is now scavenging on the garbage waste.
We have a major problem. It is evident that the number of fish in the lake is dropping every year. Therefore, with the arrival of this garbage, the quality of water is lost, levels of oxygen in the water are decreasing. We are also witnessing that wild animals that are descending to the river during the winter are rummaging through the trash. We are all in that vicious circle and this problem.
Municipal official Dragan L. Jeljan says it was hard to know who was at the fault for the problem, which had been happening for years.
Considering that this is a long-term problem, it is difficult to say who is the guilty party. There are several factors here, as the Lim River, from its source in the Plav all the way up to here, flows through 3 countries until it meets the Drina River. On its course, the Lim unfortunately collects most of the garbage from illicit waste dumping sites.
Serbia, Montenegro, Bosnia, Kosovo, Macedonia, and Albania are still recovering from the wars and economic turmoil of the 1990s. They have done little to tackle environmental issues, in part due to a lack of funds.
Now, shares in Asia Pacific have risen following an overnight jump on Wall Street. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index, South Korea's Kospi and Australia's ASX 200 are leading the gains, jumping close to 1.5%. In mainland Chinese shares, Shanghai Composite and the Shenzhen component have gained over 0.5%. Japan's Nikkei 225 has also added nearly 1%. The U.S. state of New Jersey and most of New York State have declared a state of emergency after a massive winter storm pummeled the U.S. East Coast, grounding flights and shuttering vaccination sites. New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo says the situation is becoming life-threatening with every passing hour. New Jersey and Pennsylvania are now buried under 48 centimeters of snow, while New York by a 43-centimeter thick snow blanket. The U.S. National Weather Service says winds of up to 80 kilometers per hour are also forecast for several days, creating a blinding, blowing snowstorm. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio has issued an order restricting non-essential travel and shutting down schools today. And now let's have a look at the weather updates across the world. And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can always follow us on social media at Indus.News.